Welcome to the Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast. The Medicare podcast that won't make you feel stupid. He won't go to work until after the View Medicare expert, Doug Jones.
Yeah, we're back with another episode of the Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast. This is your old buddy, Uncle Doug. I am your Medicare expert for today, and I am here to help you feel really, really confident about your impending encounter with Medicare, assuming you have an impending encounter with Medicare coming up. I like to help people with their Medicare needs, and that's why I recommend that they purchase my book, Medicare for the Lazy Man. It's on sale at barnesandnoble.com and at amazon.com. And it's available in several different editions at amazon.com, so you might have some fun doing a little online shopping. You can get the paperback version, which most people seem to wind up with. You can get the Kindle version if you've got a reader, a Kindle reader that Amazon supports. That's going to cost you less than $5. It's going to be a very, very nicely priced item. You may also get the Audible book where you get to listen to you can give your eyes a rest and you can listen to all of the Medicare knowledge sweep over your brain. And if you're a fan of big time spending, for $24, you can purchase the hardcover Medicare for the Lazy Man book, and that one will be an item that you would display in your home for all visitors and relatives who visit you to come and see. It's one of the last, it's going to be one of the last 2024 editions, because the 2025 edition is coming up fairly soon. And I would normally say, well, wait to buy the latest and greatest item. But in this case, you might have need for immediate Medicare knowledge. It might be time for you to start making some serious choices. Well, you can certainly rely on the 2024 edition to provide the ammunition you need to make those decisions. Now, one of the things you're going to find within the book is my email address. And when it's time for you to consider your Medicare enrollment, and especially to consider purchasing your Medicare supplement and your drug plan, I would like very much to be able to help you. So open the book. Use the Medicare or the email address for me that you'll find in several places in the book, and I will be happy to help you cross that threshold into the land of Medicare. Speaking of crossing thresholds, Randy Carson is here, and he has shared some knowledge with me about an item that we kind of left hanging on our most recent podcast episode. So I'd like to have him come on in and help put that one to bed. Randy, how you doing today?
I'm here. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, but you shared with me details that we didn't have at the time of our last recording involving thalidomide. And so I thought we might back up a little bit and put that one to bed.
I'm looking up the in particular details right now. I will be right with you.
We were talking about thalidomide. We were talking about thalidomide being a scourge back in the early 60s when it was accidentally released into the United States by travelers from Europe, and it caused horrible birth defects. A lot of people were born without limbs, and thalidomide was just not approved by the FDA, but it might have been on its way to approval. It had been approved in England, and when it found its way to this country, it was given to pregnant women for morning sickness, and it caused a whole bunch of birth defects, which then caused the FDA to take such a conservative stance on future approvals that many drugs have been turned down, and many other drugs were not approved for many years while people suffered and died because they wanted to make sure that another thalidomide disaster never happened again. And then I've
got the information now. Are you ready?
Well, I'm ready for you to tell why we were looking for it, because you had a hunch that you had heard something about thalidomide.
Well, I had heard that. Well, I knew it, I knew it based on my past reading that there are valid uses for thalidomide now, but I
Relatively
didn't know
recent, right?
relatively recent uses for thalidomide, but I didn't know the details of it. But I did a little bit of research here, and it says thalidomide is available under several brand names nowadays, including Thalamid, Revlimid, which is one of the ones Doug and I were talking about, thalidomide, and Thalamid XR. Bottom line is they're all derivatives of thalidomide, but its primary use nowadays is for multiple myeloma treating.
And then I told Randy I had a client a few years ago who contacted me. Actually, her friend contacted me and said, I want you to help my friend because she did not ever get a Medicare supplement. And she has multiple myeloma, recent diagnosis. It was an accidental discovery. In fact, this woman was completely asymptomatic. And so all of a sudden, her doctor said, well, the best way to treat you, and he didn't mention the drug. At least I didn't hear about it with my initial conversations with this lady, but her initial recommended course of treatment was to harvest stem cells and store them for future use. And she wouldn't need them unless she had symptoms. And at the point that we were having this discussion, she was asymptomatic. So why would this be a problem for her? Why would Medicare not pay for this? Medicare would be perfectly willing to pay for this, but that leaves the 20% that would be uncovered by Part B of Medicare. Part B pays 80%. And so she said, well, I'd be perfectly willing to pay the 20% out of my pocket. And the doctor said, we can't do that because you don't have insurance in place. You don't have a Medicare supplement. You don't have any insurance that's going to guarantee payment. And if something happened, there was a liability problem. There was a hospital problem. The hospital facilities would not be allowed to be used because she didn't have insurance in place. So here's a woman who went for years. She was in her early 70s, had no Medicare supplement. She had nothing but Medicare Parts A and B, and she found herself up the creek because if she had had a Medicare supplement in place or even Medicare Advantage, they would have been quite happy to cooperate and just harvest her stem cells and do whatever else was necessary to treat her for the multiple myeloma, including Revlimid. They eventually suggested Revlimid as an effective treatment. And she said, okay, how am I going to pay for that? And it was because she had never gotten a Medicare supplement. She'd never gotten a drug plan, and that Revlimid was going to cost her retail $750,000 a year. And so eventually she told me she got onto a drug manufacturer's program. So now she's able to take Revlimid at a reasonable cost, maybe free. And I managed to get her a Medicare supplement. Normally it would have been impossible. Kind of a convoluted way that I was able to do it, but I managed to do it. Now she has a Medicare supplement. Her doctors will perform any medically necessary procedures that she's going to need in the future because they're not afraid of the liability or the inability to collect their money for the hospital and all of that stuff. So it's been a long haul for her. Still asymptomatic, so she ought to be considering herself lucky about that. So that was a long version of the maybe not so interesting story, but it shows the risks of not having anything but actual Medicare. I've heard from other people over the years, I don't know what I need a supplement for. Medicare 80%. I've got very deep pockets. I got a lot of loot. I can pay the other 20%. That's not what it boils down to. It boils down to the doctors not wanting to do anything for you except in an emergency if you don't have the other portion of your coverage.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, that's I would highly recommend, based on my own personal experience, don't go without a supplement.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But thanks for clearing that up for us. The uses, the modern uses of thalidomide. Who would have thought back then, when all of these birth defects were happening, that there would someday be a beneficial use for that drug?
Right. No, I find I find it very interesting. And I knew I had a little bit of, I'm good with remembering details, but I couldn't remember just exactly when I had read it.
Well,
But
I'm glad you closed the door on that one. I don't like it when we leave a hanging subject
uh,
unanswered.
a hanging Chad?
Yes, that's about what I was going to say, but it seems it's turned into a cliche thanks to Al Gore. Uh,
Absolutely. I hate when my Chads are hanging. Of course, that's a whole different topic. I don't
it
know what
is.
the So anyway, we've got one more, well, many other things we need to do, but one of my particular responsibilities is to identify a two-digit number.
Yes, and I'm happy that you've been doing this so faithfully in the past, because I would hate to have it fall by the wayside. I've got a stack of Medicare Advantage articles, and Randy helps us decide which article we're going to address at each podcast episode. Randy, what is your expectation for today?
Based on high expectations that this article is going to be just really awesome.
Okay.
Hold your breath. Here it comes.
Oh, I
Number
can't.
25.
Holy, I never saw that coming. That is incredible. Wow. Okay, well, here is number 25. Let me reassemble the dwindling stack of articles. We're going to have to get the new stack out pretty quickly. It's going to be a short time before we're out of the stack that we're working on, and we'll have to get to the new stack of more recent articles.
Well,
I bet
plus
you're
you're gonna
excited
have
about that.
you're gonna have to get out that bear clip again.
Oh, I hate that thing. I'm going to find a hydraulic jack that I can use to squeeze that thing open because I'm just
You're
my
you're gonna break your thumb one of these days.
my hand hurts just from squeezing that thing enough to get the paper out of it and then trying to get it back in. It's incredible. Here's the headline that we're going to address today. The Great Disruption is coming for Medicare Advantage. The Great Disruption is coming for Medicare Advantage. Come mid-October of 2024, the Medicare Advantage program will enter its annual enrollment period marked by significant changes for older adults. So this is a look back at what was being written in September of 2024. Among these changes are increased government scrutiny, tighter government regulations, reduced base payments, and rising health care costs. Additionally, the presidential election will distract beneficiaries during the early weeks of the annual election period, and the late Thanksgiving holiday will cause many enrollees in Medicare to delay their decision making until the final week, adding significant stress to an already difficult decision. And that's from the CEO of Marketplace eHealth. The health insurance industry has also launched a seven-figure lobbying blitz, including a digital and social media campaign to counter mounting challenges and highlight the benefits of Medicare Advantage plans that they can offer to older adults. Oh boy, I bet that's a short advertising campaign. In response to these market shifts, Medicare Advantage carriers are prioritizing their margins over membership by reducing certain benefits and exiting unprofitable markets. As margins tighten and negotiations with doctors and hospitals become more strained, some health systems are choosing to no longer accept some or all Medicare Advantage plans. Taken together, some are calling these cuts the Great Disruption. This came from a guy named Dr. Jane. He's the CEO of SCAN Group, a nonprofit Medicare Advantage carrier with more than 285,000 members. Oh, Randy's got his guitar or his violin out. He's playing a sad song. It's bringing a tear to my eye. So Dr. Jane is obviously concerned about the future of his job here, I guess. He outlined 5 key observations about the evolving landscape. Number 1, benefit stability will win out among participants, customers, over innovation. Number 2, Medicare Advantage organizations will need to improve care management, including avoiding hospitalizations and proactively managing chronic conditions. Number 3, Medicare Advantage competition will increasingly focus on a plan's effectiveness and service quality. Number 4, brokers will become more important than ever. Well, that's what I am. I'm glad he has confidence in the value that I bring to the table. And number 5, stronger relationships will prevail over partnering with everyone. All right, well, that's Dr. Jane's list of 5 things that he thinks Medicare Advantage plans are going to notice as becoming big, important factors in the future. So we've got 2 more articles in our stack of Medicare Advantage articles, and then there'll be a whole new stack with much more current Medicare Advantage news. But in the meantime, we've got some sponsors that are just champing at the bit to tell you all about what they're doing. So let's hear what they have to say. All righty, we're back, and we have our Medicare benefits, your Medicare benefits, not ours, your Medicare Benefits 2024, which is a list of about everything possible that a doctor can do to you, about you, with you, or test for you. And in this case, they're all alphabetically listed. We've been in the C's for what seems like months now. I don't know why there's so many C's, but we're still in the C's, and the procedure we're going to address today is one of my favorite subjects. It's cognitive. It's how your brain works. In this case, it's going to be cognitive assessment and care plan services. Part B, as in Bravo, covers a separate visit with a doctor or healthcare provider to fully review your cognitive function, establish or confirm a diagnosis like dementia or Alzheimer's disease, and develop a care plan. Your healthcare provider might also give you a cognitive assessment to look for any signs of dementia when you go for other visits, including your yearly preventive wellness visit. Go to preventive visits on pages 90 and 92 for more information. Well, we won't be doing that now. We'll do that when we're in that part of the alphabet. Signs of cognitive impairment may include trouble remembering, learning new things, concentrating, managing finances, or making decisions about your everyday life. Conditions like depression, anxiety, and delirium can also cause confusion, so it's important to understand why you may be having symptoms. Well, that's it. This doesn't even tell us how Medicare is going to pay for it. Usually it says, well, your Medicare is going to pay 100%, or it says you've got to pay 20% unless you have a Medicare supplement, but none of that today. Just comes to an abrupt end. I'm horrified with that, but anyway, it's the end of the line for your Medicare benefits. Now I've got a whole stack of things here. If you don't have, and this is very timely, if you don't have Medicare Part B, the General Enrollment period can bail you out. The General Enrollment period is what we're in right now, and it runs from January 1st to the end of March each year. The General Enrollment period can offer you a soft landing if you do not yet have Medicare Part B. You've no doubt heard that the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period started January 1st. Also going on right now is the General Enrollment period. It's not as well known, but it's very important for those who do not have complete Medicare coverage. These questions address the important points. What is the General Enrollment period? That's question number 1. It shares the same time frame as the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period from January 1st to March 31st, but that's about the only thing these two periods have in common. The General Enrollment period provides an opportunity to make up for a past oversight, which would be the failure to enroll in Part B of Medicare. Why does this oversight occur? Here are 3 big reasons for winding up in this predicament. Number 1 is not enrolling in Part B during the initial enrollment period. Number 2 is missing the chance to enroll in Part B during the 8-month special enrollment period. Now, the initial enrollment period is 3 months before the month in which you turn 65, or the 3 months after that month. So you've got a 7-month period. That's the initial enrollment period. That happens once in your life when you're about to turn 65. The second item on this list is the chance to enroll in Part B during the 8-month special enrollment period, which you get after you have left your employer group insurance coverage. Those who have employer group coverage can qualify for the Part B special enrollment period, which allows them to enroll without facing a late enrollment penalty or delay in coverage at retirement. This is an 8-month period that begins with the date employment or coverage ends, whichever comes first. Missing the chance to enroll happens because way too many times to those who have a COBRA continuation coverage, they just shine it on. Because the health plan is the same as they had before retirement, they believe they're covered and don't need Medicare until COBRA ends a year or so later after their special enrollment period has ended. So they'll slide on COBRA for a year to a year and a half and not even realize that they have lost the opportunity for enrollment in Part B without a late enrollment penalty. Failing to pay the Part B premium is the third reason. Medicare has a procedure for handling non-payment of premiums. If the premiums are not paid by the end of the grace period, Part B is canceled. The only way to get back into Part B again is to enroll during the General Enrollment period, which only occurs from January through March. Besides COBRA and retiree plans, is there any other type of coverage that puts someone at risk? The answer to that question is basically those who do not have a group health plan based on their or their spouse's current employment are at risk. Besides the two mentioned, this includes individual plans, VA coverage, and having no plan at all. One important note, those who have a group plan sponsored by a company with fewer than 20 employees should also enroll in Part B of Medicare during the initial enrollment period. That's because this coverage becomes secondary to Medicare after age 65. And if you don't have Medicare, there's nothing for it to be secondary to. You basically will have a big hole in your insurance protection. The next question asked in this article is, why is Part B necessary? Part B, medical insurance, that's what they call it. It's really for anything outpatient. Anytime you're not in a inpatient situation in a hospital or a nursing home or a rehab center, then Part B is what pays for your medical bills. Part B, medical insurance, is the outpatient component of Medicare. Without it, there is no coverage for doctor's visits, diagnostic tests, or outpatient procedures, services, and some medications. What is the procedure for enrolling during the general enrollment period? One way is to call Social Security, and here's the telephone number, 800-772-1213. However, my clients, whoever wrote this article, have reported long hold times or disconnections. A better way is to complete one form, application for enrollment in Part B, and submit it to the local Social Security office. I believe that's CMS-40B. You can download that from the internet. It's important to keep a copy of it and send it by FedEx or UPS to track and have proof of delivery. The next question, when will Part B begin if you do all this? According to the government procedure, Part B will take effect the first day of the month after enrollment. So right now it's February 20th. If you send in your application right now, then your coverage would take effect March 1st. Submitting the CMS 40B form in early January, for instance, should result in a February 1st start date. After Part B is in place, there's an opportunity to enroll in additional coverage. Are there any repercussions associated with missing Part B enrollment and the general enrollment period? There are 4 listed in this article. One is a gap in coverage. If an employer plan ends in April or Part B is canceled in July for non-payment, the individual will not have coverage for several months. Another one is having to pay 100% of the out-of-pocket costs for outpatient services. Number 3, cancellation of Medicare supplement plan or a Medicare Advantage plan. Part B enrollment is a requirement to qualify for one of those plans. And the fourth consequence is a Part B late enrollment penalty. The penalty is 10% of the annual Part B premium for every year that Part B enrollment was delayed. Let's say that a woman retired in January of 2023 and enrolls in Part B that month. Part B would be effective February 1st of 2025. She is 2 years late, which would be an additional $37 per month this year, 10% of 185 times 2 years. The penalty amount changes every year and it follows you for the rest of your life. And the final question in this article, are there any tips for avoiding this situation? The best tip is, no matter your situation, pay attention to Medicare during your initial enrollment period. Do your research and figure out how your coverage coordinates with Medicare. If you have an employer group plan sponsored by a company of 20 or more employees, and it's based on current employment, in other words, you're actively at work, or your spouse is actively at work, you can consider deferring Part B enrollment without penalty or delay. But when retiring, be sure to enroll before the end of your Part B special enrollment period, which is 8 months long. I would say do it so that Part B starts the day your employment ends. That would be the ideal protection. If you have any other coverage, enroll in Medicare before the end of your initial enrollment period, and then you'll never have to say, oops, I missed my chance. I hate it when I have to say that. And finally, a little fun. I was going to try to work this out to be a quiz for Randy because he likes to quiz me, and he calls it Stump the Insurance Guy, and that stump part is often very painful. But I couldn't figure out a way to turn this into a quiz, so I'm just going to share some interesting things. These are 6 things that we grew up with that are going to go away or are already gone. And so it starts out by saying President Trump wants to cancel the penny, but that's not the only item. I don't know if he's going to succeed. Nobody else has ever succeeded in canceling pennies. They still apparently get made by the Treasury Department or the Mint. But people say that it costs more money to make a penny than it does that it's actually worth. So there are 6 items that are on the way out the door. One is paper checks. Apparently, at the peak of paper checks, 49.5 billion checks were written every year. That was in the mid-90s. As of 2022, there are only 11 billion checks being written. That's more than a 77% decline. So I don't know what's going to happen. Paper checks are going like by the wayside. I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. Processing one single check can cost a business between $4 and $20, factoring in bank fees, cost of labor, and postage, according to a study that was conducted. And so I think that when the pressure is on, and I know I get all kinds of emails from like utility companies and so forth, trying to lure me into paperless bill payment. And I refuse to cooperate, but at some point I may be forced into it. Okay, payphones, another item that used to be all over the place. And Randy's going, well, how am I going to call my friends if I don't have a payphone available? Well, they used to be everywhere. More than 2 million payphones dotting America's landscape. At the peak of payphones, I'm surprised at this. The peak of payphones occurred in 1999. And since then, of course, everybody's got a cell phone they carry around. All teenage girls have cell phones. They're glued to their hand. So the payphone is on the way out. And let's see, the last payphone, the payphone's reign. In May of 2022, the payphone's reign ended for good with the last payphone located on 7th Avenue in New York City taken out of service. In its new home, it's in the Museum of the City of New York. Number 3, digital cameras. Now, who would have thought digital cameras would go by the wayside? For some teens, young adults, and even millennials, digital cameras have a certain retro appeal, but for other people, digital cameras aren't the first thing you're going to grab when snapping pictures. After all, your phones have built-in camera technology that is much better at capturing clear and close-up images than a digital camera ever could be. That's hard to believe. I would have thought that they would be the best. In 2010, digital cameras peaked and about 120 million were sold in the U.S. At the end of 2024, we're down to about 8.5 million. So going from 120 million to 8 million. I see the handwriting on the wall for digital cameras. Paper airline tickets and boarding passes. Now, I don't know what they're going to do with all those kiosks they have in airports, but that is the only way I know of to get boarding passes and tickets. But apparently they're going to be phased out. Emirates Airlines is the only airline. Now, I don't fly Emirates Airlines any at all, but they're the only airline to announce that it will no longer accept physical boarding passes. Alaska Air has made it more difficult removing boarding pass printing kiosks from its terminals. The airline's goal by removing them is to get passengers ready to go through security in no more than 5 minutes. Number 5, business cards. This surprised the heck out of me. I spend a lot of money on business cards, and I pass them out like toilet paper to anybody who will at least grab one from me. I don't know what I'm going to pin up on restaurant walls. Some restaurants have bulletin boards full of business cards, local entrepreneurs, and boy, that's going to be a tough one for me because business cards have been a fact of life ever since I went into business in 1975. It says the number of business cards printed has been estimated to have declined by 70%, replacing business cards, which often get tossed in a drawer or thrown out, are digital business cards. These are a copy of the paper business card, but they can be shared between digital devices via a QR code or text and email link. Finally, desktop computers. And Randy just either got a rebuilt one. No, he's saying, nope, I will not let my desktop computer go. His desktop computer, he's hugging it right now. He's hanging onto it. And they're invisible hands coming from each side trying to force it out of his grip. Unless you're a hardcore gamer or a graphic designer, chances are you have no use for a clunky desktop computer. Or unless your name...
Or a programmer.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless your name is Randy. And the monitor taking up space on your desk. Well, the monitors are now modern flat screen monitors, so they don't take up that much room, do they? I don't know. Anyway, while desktop computers change the world, they're out in Z. They've been replaced by laptops and mobile devices. The iPhone and Androids of today are just as powerful as desktop computers, reducing the need for these bigger machines. Sales of desktop computers peaked in 2010, steadily declined ever since. So I'm sorry to break the news to you, Randy.
I will not be able to do my business on a laptop computer because eventually my eyes will fall out.
I got to tell you, I'm having trouble with mine. I have to close my blinds in the morning because the Arizona sun makes it almost impossible for me to find the cursor on my screen on my laptop.
I wiggle it around until I see it.
I've already dug a hole in the glass touchpad on my keyboard.
For the wiggling part?
Yeah, I've been wiggling all over the thing, and now the glass is getting so thin, I'm going to need a new computer.
Well, I will never be without a desktop, and obviously the thing they're not talking about is servers. There's massive servers that are running all the internet, so they're never going to go away.
Right. Well, they may, but it'll be something weird that replaces them, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you know something? We're about out of time.
How did that happen?
We had so much fun this time. I totally lost track of the time.
Well, that's I think it was talking about cognitive assessment and care plan services.
Yeah.
And I know what happened. I forgot to turn the page. I bet the rest of that article is somewhere in my yeah, there it is. Well, I'm going to do the whole thing all over again next time. I'm going to start at the beginning of cognitive assessment and care plan services and read through the whole article because I like thinking about my brain.
Sounds like a plan. Well, I'm going to go ahead and close up shop here. Just in case anybody wants to know, we are out of quarters. I can't seem to get any improvement in my budgeting through the board. I just don't know what to do about it. And Doug's trying, but he hasn't got the job done yet. We have a very, very stingy board of directors.
We throw a hell of a nice Christmas party, though.
I know, we really do. So, if you need to reach out to Doug, use this email address, dbj@mlmmailbag.com. Don't forget, Doug is prepared and ready to help you with your nationwide planning for Medicare supplements. Check us out at the website, medicareforthelazymen.com. We would appreciate it if you could drop a review on the content somewhere around the internet. We really appreciate it. And it means everything to us because numbers in the world of podcasting are everything. And last but certainly not least, thank you for joining us. You could have been anywhere, and you weren't. You were with us listening to Medicare for the Lazy Man podcast, but you probably don't remember how long it's been. We have spent about 32 and a half minutes with Jug Jones, the anti-insurance insurance guy, originally from Oklahoma, No more. He's up in the high ground behind Cave Creek, Arizona. And I checked before we got on the air today, and I'm going to bring him down just a little bit. I'm going to bring him in at 9,000 feet in his fortress of solitude.
I I have to say, Randy, I think 9,000 was where you left me the last time, so no moving for me. I get to stay with my box of Kleenex and clear my nose every 5 minutes like I have been. But thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. It's been a lot of fun. We hope you come back and join us for our next episode. Bye-bye.